Okay, we're up to the Mishnah on Tzadik Hey Amid Aleph. The Mishnah on Tzadik Hey Amid Aleph.
Turn on the radio. We'll talk now.
We're concluding the perek with some more intense Gemara. There's nothing else to other way to the end of the Masech. There's no picnic, right? No picnic. It says the Mishnah. Listen to this case. Misha hayinasu beis. He's married to two women. Umachar esadeu. Now, both of these women have a shibud on the nechasim, right? Their nechasim, his nechasim are meshubid. His property there's a lien on his property to pay the kesuba, and he only has enough. The two women, his property is enough for one of them. So Misha yinasu shtei nashim umachar esadeu. That one field that can pay off one of them is he sells. Now, and also, in addition, there's an order that they didn't get the ksuba at the same time. There's one who has a shibud previously. So there's a pecking order, right? So we have woman A and woman B, and there's only enough property to go ahead and pay off one or the other. So Pashtus, woman A would get it. The Rishona would get it. However, because of Rishona L'Keach, the woman writes to the one who bought the property, Dinu devarim ainli imach. I have nothing to do with you. In other words, I relinquish my shiva to you. Right? And the guy dies. And now they're going to collect the ksuba. So, what did I say? Ainli imach v'shniyam. Okay. And then the guy dies. Hashniya. Let me get the other traveler over here. Hashniya matzi me'alokeach. The second one goes ahead and takes it from the Loikeach, because after all, she was allowed to, but the Rishon can't. In other words, guys, if you go according to the pecking order, this person who bought it, number one would get it, right? Number one would get it. But number one had written to this guy, I have nothing to do with you. So now number two goes and takes it away. Good. But number one can take it away from number two. Again, there's a lien on the property. Number one never said he relinquished that lien to number two. That number one relinquished the lien to the one who bought it. So when the number two takes it away from the one who bought it, number one can take it away from number two, which begins this cycle of things, right? You guys hear what's happening here? One more time? Okay, one more time. One more time. The guy's married. He's got two wives. He can only pay off one ksuba. In other words, let's say each one has 100. He has a shibud of 200, 100, and 100, and he's got a property that's worth 100. Good. So therefore, if he would die, right? If he would die, number one would get it. She has the first lien. She has the first dibs. Good. But what happened was he didn't die, and he sold the property. And number one had written to the guy who he sold the property to, I'm relinquishing my shiva to you. I don't have anything to do with you. Good. So she's out. Good. Who you left with? Number two. Number two now could take it back. But when number two takes it back, number one is capable of taking it back from number two. She only relinquished her shiva to the Lekeach. She didn't relinquish her first dib right over number two. So number one now can take back the property from number two. Wife number one can take back, again, because this property, they both had a shibud on it. But number one had first rights. She gave up the first rights not to the first wife, the second wife. She gave up the first rights to Lekeach. So as soon as the second one takes it back from Lekeach, the first one now can take it back from number two. Let's see it inside. Because of Rishona Lekeach, and the first wife who has first dibs rights, Lekeach. And now the guy dies. The second one takes it back from Lekeach, because the first one can't take it from Lekeach. However, and the Rishona can take it from the second one. Good. Now, the Lekeach and the Rishona. Now the Lekeach can take it back from the first one. Why? Because the first one she was Michael Shiva to the Lekeach. And the cycle continues until they make the b'shara between them. The Ritva says that it's not that we're not going to trouble Bezdin to take it away and go through the cycle. Mean since this exists, they're going to have to come up with a pshara. Since this vicious cycle is going to exist, they're going to come up with a pshara. Okay, we all have it straight. Okay, one more time. I said silence is golden. Okay, we have three people involved there. We have two women and one lekeach. The lekeach is buying a property as a shiba to both these women. The first one who had first crack relinquishes that shibud. The second one does not relinquish that shibud. So therefore, when the husband dies, number two can grab it, but number one can't. So number two grabs it. However, who comes first, number one or number two? Number one. So number one now can grab it from number two. Good. As soon as number one grabs it from number two, the lekeach says, 1 second, you gave up your shiba to me. He could take it back from that. And then the whole thing would start over again.
How does number one have a right to take it from number two? What's number two?
Because there's a shibud on the property and she has the first mortgage. She only relinquished it to the lekeach, though. She didn't relinquish it. Why? In other words, when the lekeach takes the property, it's not that she absolves herself from it. Meaning, vis-a-vis you, I don't have a lien. But vis-a-vis number two, I do have a lien. Vis-a-vis wife number two, I do have a lien. She didn't relinquish it totally. She just relinquished it from that particular individual. And the Mishnah includes v'chein balcho v'chein isha balasto. We're going to see a case at the end of the shir. The same thing would exist by a balcho, but by an isha's balcho. We're going to have the exact same case by a malva and by a ksuba.
Lays, would the same thing be if the first lekeach sells it to someone else? Can the first wife take it from the second lekeach?
Of course.
Same thing, same reasoning, right?
Yeah. She only relinquishes the wife. Yeah, she still has a lien on the property, only vis-a-vis what
the first person, right?
Says the Gemara, when she writes this, who cares? In other words, it shouldn't be effective. For Tanya, we had this Gemara, guys. Someone says to his friend, Dinu devarim ainli al sadazu, I have nothing to do with this field. Vainly asikbo, I have nothing to do with it. The yadim is selekas himenu, any one of those lashonis, lo yam klum. So just because the woman said this to the lekeach, it doesn't count. Since he said to the lekeach, guys, it doesn't count, right? It doesn't count. So says the Gemara, what are we dealing with over here? She made a kinyan chalip, and it wasn't just words. She said the words, and she made a kinyan on those words, and therefore he requires those rights. Question: just because she did this, chikana miyada, when you made a kinyan, my have, right? Who cares? Hey, let us say, nachasua chasisa lebaili. Really, what she wanted to do was we wanted to find favor with her husband. What does that mean? If a person knows that there is no shibud on this property, they'll be much easier to sell. By her relinquishing her rights to the shibud, this first wife, she's basically saying, I'm doing a type for my husband. He could sell this, and he doesn't have to worry about of collection. So it's much more. A guy can announce, listen, here's the field to sell, and my wife, guess what? You don't have to worry about her. She's out of the picture. You don't have to worry about coming. There's no lien on this property. So if we say that, even after a kinyan, why is she believed? In other words, we have a problem over here. You're telling me that unequivocally, without a doubt, that this woman has relinquished her rights to the lekeach. First of all, how could you do that? I got an answer to that. You made a kinyan. Fred the Gemara, even after the kinyan, maybe she didn't mean to do it. Maybe she just wanted to find favor in the eyes of her husband. What's the favor in the eyes of a husband? To make it easier to sell because there's no lien on the property, but she didn't mean it. Milay Tanan, did we not learn? Lokach mina ish, v'chazav lokach mina isha. If a man buys a property from a man and then buys another property from a woman, mechra batal. The mechra is batal. Why? In Smashma, it's batal completely, right? Why? That what? The reason it's batal is why? Is because I didn't want to really sell it. So therefore, over here in our Mishnah, why does it help to say she made a kinyan? Even after the kinyan, maybe she's just doing what nachas pilus does. So we need a teretz. So that guys, that's a brisa in Masechta Gittin. So we have a problem, guys. In our brisa, we have a brisa in Masechta Gittin that says you make a nachas ruach lebaili, and we have our Mishnah that says not. This is important. Let's just set it up. Our Mishnah doesn't seem to take into account the fact that she's selling the property, and that what she's saying nachas ruach asisi lebaili, right? Yet the Brisa in Gittin says clearly, even if she sells it, we don't count her sale because we say nachas ruach asisi lebaili. So we have a bit of a if not a contradiction, a bit of a different way. How do you explain our Mishnah vis-a-vis the Brisa in Gittin? Okay, so now says the Gemara, Amrav Zeira. I got 3 turutzim to this. Amrav Zeira, Amrav Chista, loy kasha. It's not a problem. Ha Reb Meir. Our Mishnah is speaking according to Reb Meir, and Ha Reb Yehuda, and the Brisa in Gittin is according to Reb Yehuda. So our Mishnah is going to go like Reb Meir, who we're going to meet in a second, and the Brisa that says nachas ruach asisi that we're going is according to Reb Yehuda. Good. The Tanya. Chasav l'rishoin, v'loy chasmala. You have over here, he sold the field. She didn't agree to a sign. Sold the field. She didn't agree to sign on the field. She wanted to relinquish her ksuba rights. He sells another field, right? And the second one she does sign. So chasav l'rishoin v'loy chasmalai l'sheni to a second person v'chasmalai, and she signs in it. Ibn ksubasa. She loses the rights for ksuba. She sold it away. Divrei Reb Meir. These are the words of Reb Meir. Why? Because Reb Meir holds, guys, we don't say nachas ruach asisi lebaili. We hold when she's signing it away, she's signing it away. That's our Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda says, she's able to say nachas ruach asisi lebaili. Atem malachem alai. What do you have against me? In other words, I only wanted to do what? I only wanted to go ahead and get and find favor in my husband's eyes. And here's the way Rashi learns. Rabbi Sasam lehoch Reb Meir. Rabbi made our Mishnah anonymous like Reb Meir, that we don't say nachas ruach asisi lebaili. The Sasam lahasam and the Mishnah and the Brisa in Gittin is Reb Yehuda. So outside, and let's see the teretz, guys. Outside, let's look at me on the screen. We have a problem. Our Mishnah clearly says the woman relinquished her rights. There's no question. If ands and buts, she relinquished her rights. How do you know she relinquished her rights? Because we began that cycle of what? Of taking it away. We know that that's a given. We have a Brisa in what that says she sold, didn't relinquish anything. How do you go ahead and deal with our Mishnah that says she did relinquish, and over here she didn't relinquish? No problem. It's 2 different people. We have machloikis between Reb Meir and Reb Yehuda. When a person sells a field to one person and doesn't sign, sells a field to another person, does sign, says Reb Meir, she relinquished her rights. Maybe she just want to find favor with her husband. That's the answer. Reb Meir doesn't hold. You find favor with her husband. What's b'shat in our Mishnah? Why does she relinquish her rights? Because it's the Astam. My Mishnah is like Reb Meir. You don't say you relinquish your rights. The Brisa says when you sold the second field, what? You sold the second field, we say it's nothing. That goes according to Rabbi Yehuda, who says you do relinquish. A woman will go ahead and say what? Nachas ruach asisi lebaili. So that's one way of explaining the difference between our Mishnah and the Mishnah and the Brisa in Gittin. Here's 2 other ways to explain it. Next way. Amrav Papa, Bigarusha, the Divrei. Guess what? Our Mishnah is speaking by a Garusha, the Divrei. Okay, guys, let's look at my hands again. Ksubis, Gerushin is good. Gerushin says that what? A woman goes ahead what? And will do an achas ruach to her husband. Therefore, it's not a good sale. Why in our Mishnah is a good sale? It's because it's speaking by a Garusha. There's 2 ways you can get your Kesuba, guys. Either the husband dies or you get divorced, right? If it's a Garusha, there's no way in the world she's going ahead what and cares about her husband, right? So it's even Reb Meir would agree in our Mishnah. This is a Parvus Teretz, is a good Teretz. You're not saying our Mishnah is Reb Meir and the Brisa is Reb Yehuda. You're saying it's all Reb Meir, right? It's saying it's all Reb Yehuda. Nachas ruach asisi lebaili. There's no machloikis. Reb Meir would agree in our Mishnah also. There's no nachas ruach because there is no what. It doesn't come into play because she's a Garusha. A third Teretz, Rav Ashi Amar, Hula Reb Meir. Everything's Reb Meir. So if everything's Reb Meir, how is our Mishnah speaking? You're telling me that Reb Meir holds a nachas ruach asisi over there. Why not over here? But Ad Kan like come Reb Meir Hassam over there in the Brisa in Gittin is where you wrote to the first one and you didn't sign. The second one you did sign. Ela b'shnei lekuchos. The Amalei isya de nachas ruach avda lekami boy chalamevad. You should have gone ahead and done it to the first one. I feel Reb Meir Moida. I could tell you the following. I could tell you, Reb Meir says that in fact, nachas ruach asisa lebaili. Okay, you could say that. So therefore, in the brisa, what did she do? Why doesn't Reb Meir agree over there? The nachas ruach asisa lebaili, right? What happened over there? You sold one field and you didn't sign. You sold the second field and you did sign. If she cared so much about endearing herself to her husband, why'd she wait to the second field? She should have done it in the first field. She should have done it in the first field. She didn't, right? And therefore we say what? Therefore Reb Meir disagrees over there. But in a place where what? Where there's no svara to say that in a place where it's only one sale, but it's only one thing, you can agree over there that we would say nachas ruach sisa lebaili. I feel Reb Meir maida. So in other words, you wanted to say Reb Meir disagrees with the whole concept of nachas ruach sisa lebaili. You'd be incorrect, because your whole source was the brisa in Gittin. The brisa in Gittin speaking about two sales. If she really cared about her husband so much, she should have signed off in the first one. Our Mishnah that says we don't say it must be speaking, guys, where there were two sales, or else it doesn't work. And that's what the Gemara concludes. It says the Gemara, and Masnisan and our Mishnah, the Kasav Leila Acher, that he had gone ahead and he didn't sign the first one, but signed for the second one, and therefore she can't say nachas ruach sisa lebaili. Our Mishnah must be speaking in that mitzias. So we have three ways to go ahead and answer the brisa in Gittin where it says nachas ruach sisi, to our Mishnah where you don't. The first way is to say our Mishnah is according to Reb Meir, who doesn't hold of it, and the brisa is according to Reb Yehuda, who does hold of it. A second way, a brisa is speaking about a gerusha, so everything's off the table. There's no nachas ruach. The third opinion is our Mishnah is Reb Meir also. Why? Reb Meir says you don't say nachas ruach, right? You're correct. Reb Meir says you don't say nachas ruach in the brisa because you sold it to separate people. But if you sold it to one person, he would agree with it. In our Mishnah, you don't say nachas ruach because our Mishnah must be speaking about a second sale, and she didn't sign off in the first one, only the second one. Guys, we're good? We're all good. Great. We kept cheshbon. Tan Hassam, the Mishnah over there in Gittin. Okay, now a guy owes you some money. He owes you $10,000. You have a lien on his property, and you go there, and he says, "Listen, I sold off a field. I sold off a field." You go to the guy, and the guy says, "1 second, I left you another field to collect from." You go back to the loiva, to the borrower, and in fact, he's got property. That's called b'nei chayrin. You never collect from mishubadim the makom yeshem b'nei chayrin. Even if, let's say you're a Baal Chov, and the only field he has left is Idias, you would collect from that Idias. You don't say, I sold Baininus, go collect the Baininus that has a lien on it. As long as this guy, the lover, has property that does not have a lien on it, hasn't been sold, you collect from him. The only time you go into indentured properties is when there's nothing free available by the person that owes you, by the loiva. Good? That's the din. And even if it's junk, even if you come back, you're baininus and you come back, it's junk. This is a case that's nothing to do with our Mishnah, but we're going to bring it in Mishnah to try to be pushed it. It's shtatif b'nei chayrin mahu the litrek in b'shabdei. Okay, here's that case. I go ahead, I sell a filter hesh. I go sell the filter hesh. Comes along Kenny and says to me, where's my money? I said, well, I don't have anything, but I did. He goes, 1 second, you had collateral, you had a field. I said, I sold it to Hesh. So Kenny goes to Hesh. Hesh says to Kenny, 1 second, I left something by the rabbi. Come back to me. And I said, it's true, I have an Eichayim, go take a look. It's flooded, it's worth nothing. Do we say that he can go back to Hesh or not? Do we say that when do you collect from Mishubadim is only when there's no Bnei Chayim, period? Or even if you can't collect from Bnei Chayim because it's not usable? That's the Shaila. In other words, guys, is Pshat, there's a lien on the property that Heshi has, and there's a pecking order. You got to collect from here, but there's still a lien on there. Or is Pshat, when Heshi bought it, there's no lien because when I sold it to him, there was a field over here for Kenny to collect. So there's no lien on the property whatsoever. How do you view it? It's a lumdish shaila. If you view it, there's a lien on my property, meaning I can't collect from Heshi, but there is a lien there. I can't collect Heshi as long as it's available by laser. Once it's not available by laser, I go to Heshi. Well, no, since Heshi left the property by me, there's no lien on Heshi's property, period. And therefore, Kenny's out of luck. That's the Shiloh of the Gemara. Good, that's the Shiloh of the Gemara. What does that have to do with us? We'll see in a second. Let's see one more time. Tanan, we said over here, can you go back and collect from the Shubadim? Toshma, Chasab Rishain, we have the Brisa we just quoted. Chasab Rishain v'lechas malai, l'sheni v'chas malai, if the Ksubasa, she loses a Ksuba, div Reb Meir. These are the words of Reb Meir. So now, can we view, right, that when she didn't sign off on the first one, right? She didn't sign off the first one, but she signed off on the second one. So now, can we view it as being makulkal, as what? You don't have rights to it. She should collect what from the first one. In other words, do we view the fact that she went ahead and said, you can't go ahead and collect from, I signed off on that one. So basically, I said it's flooded. Just like the field is flooded, the field I signed off is flooded. And we said that what? That you're going to tell me that you lost your ksuba, period. So we can be placed at the shiloh. When the field is flooded, you lost your shibud. I flooded my field. I have this number 2 is gone. I can't go back to number 1. Says the Gemara, I want this being a proof. Why don't we say the following? Nihi de ibda ksuba misheni, because you wrote off on that, Merisha and Mia Tikva, you should collect from the first one. Since the Bnei Chayrim field was niskalkel as a result of what? Of the chasima. Guys, the woman is the Bnei Chayrim field is in the hands of the second one, right? When she signed off with it, let's view it as the field being flooded. So you're telling me you can't collect from the flooded field, but it says you lost your ksuba. Is a raya, you can't go back to the shibud. So Kenny would not be able to collect from Heshi in our scenario. Says no, Amar Rav Nachman by Yitzchak, no, my Ivda Misheni. No. He could, it means he lost it from me. He lost it from number 2, but it means he can go back to number 1. So number 2. You lost it from number 2, but you didn't lose it from number 1. So therefore you can't be Paisha the Shaila. In other words, Kenny lost the right to collect from me, but he will be able to go to Hesh. Rava doesn't like this possibility. Amar Rava, Shtei Shuvas B'Dava. Let me give you 2 reasons this doesn't make any sense. Chada, the Ivda, when you say you lost it, it doesn't mean from 1. Ivda is Legami. You lost it means what? Period. From 1 and 2. You're gone. You finished it, right? The Ivda is Legami Mashma. Va'oid, Tanya, Loiva Minha Echad. If you go ahead and you borrow from one person, Umachav Nechasav Lishnayim, and then the Loiva, he sells it to people. So again, in our scenario, I owed Kenny money. I sold it to Heshi and Lenny. The cost of Balchoiv Lekeach Sheni, and the Balchoiv, someone who owes to Lekeach Sheni to Lenny, Dinu Devarim Ainli Imach. I don't have nothing to do with you, Lenny, but so therefore, Ein Lo Ela Lekeach Rishon Klum, right? Ein Lo Lekeach Rishon Klum. He can't say, the Balchoiv can't come to Kenny and say, 1 second, right? Collect from Kenny, because Kenny could say, I left you a place to collect from. I left you Lenny. In other words, he was the second person. He wasn't the first person. He was the second person. So he can go ahead and say, so you can't collect from the first person. So therefore, even he's able to say, live voice to collect from, he can't collect. Now, what does this have to do with anything? Let's see Rashi. Rashi will go put us together again. What's our shaila, guys? Our shaila is if a bnei chayrin is out of the picture for whatever reason, right? In case it's flooded, can you collect from the shubadim or not? We want to prove from the brisa in Gittin that you can't. Why? Because it says you lost your ksuba. You flooded your field. You said you don't want to collect for number 2. You flooded it, and you lose every right. Why do you lose every right? Because it says the lashon of ibda legamri, and now this second case. So let's see this case over here. V'oy Tanya, hachi gasina. List Rashi. Ihu the asira nafshe. V'kula Rabba Kamalei. Rabba saying no thing. Loi tema. Don't say my ibda ksubasa misheni. Don't say that you lost the ksuba only from the second one that you wrote. You don't have anything to do with them. You have a rishon ivda. You even lost in the first one. Afilu hachi. So, guys. So now, what are you going to say? Let's be pushed the shaila the other way, guys. Let's be pushed the shaila the other way, meaning that you're out completely. You're out completely. Let's be. In other words, what did the Gemara want to do initially? The Gemara wanted to say you're out for number 2, but you're in for number 1. So therefore, you'll be able to collect for Heshi. Kenny will be able to collect from Heshi. Says Rava, it says you're out Lagamri. And Sveitens, right? So that's, let's go the other way. So it means you're totally out. You can't be pushed to the Shiloh. Why can't you be pushed to the Shiloh? Because in both cases, you screwed yourself. What did you do? You went ahead and you're a Ksuba, you gave up your rights. You're a Lakeach, you gave up your rights. Maybe there's a difference where you give up your rights and where it happens naturally, but it was flooded, right? So it's a big difference. Let's see the lashon of Rashi. Afilu hachi lo nifshet mina. You can't be paishit. Ishtatif b'nei chayrin leitar from b'shabdei. You can't be paishit if the b'nei chayrin came. If my field became flooded, that Kenny can go to Heshi. Why? The hasam of the ksubasa over there. What? He lost the rights to collect. Right? And or v'hadik tani ein loy al lekech rishon klum. He has nothing on the first, right? Chad taimahu. The reason you can't come back and collect from the first one, why? The guy wants to collect his chayv. He wrote to the second one who bought the field, I have nothing to do with you. So can he go back to the first one? Of course not. He's mafsed himself. In Mishnah also, the woman was mafsed herself. So therefore, you can't be pushed to Shiloh from this Gemara period. Okay, one more time. Let's go through it outside. We know Allah is that you can collect from the chasim mishubadim, but only if there's no bnei chayrin. If there's bnei chayrin, you can't collect from that. What happened if there is bnei chayrin but it's not available because it became flooded? Can you collect from the mishubim or not? The Gemara wanted to go ahead, bring in the brisa that we said from Masechta Gittin that what you can't collect. What's the brisa Masechta Gittin that you can't collect? That's the case where she signed off on the first one, on the second one, not the first one. So what did we say over there? That she can't go back and collect the first one. We wanted to say that. So what do you see? That where you lost the Nechayrin, you can't collect. So the Gemara wants to say, no, it's going on she could collect from the first one. It says the Gemara 2 reasons. One, the Lashon if the Ksuba means completely. And second of all, if a Baal Chayv went ahead and signed, and he had 2 fields to collect from, but the second one he said, I have nothing to do with, he can't collect from the first, because the first guy can say, I left you a place. Right? And Sveitens, you want to be placed from this Gemara to the other side of the Shaila. That once the field of Bnei Chayrin is flooded, you can't collect from the other guy. That's possibly not true. Maybe you could collect from the other guy. In our cases over here, the case of where the guy gave up the right or the woman signed off on it, they themselves are messing themselves up. They themselves wrote, I have nothing to do with you. So that's why they can't go back. But let's say it was a natural event. Let's say it was flooded. Maybe you could. So you can't be pushing anything from this mission and from this whole Sak of Ataria. You can't come to any conclusion. It remains a question that is not answered. It remains an abaya delay of shita. Amle Rav Yemel Rav Ashi says Rav Yemel Rav Ashi on the base. V'hamaisim b'chol yoyim. That what? That maisim b'chol yoyim. That judges go ahead and they do collect from Bnei Chayrin, even though there's mishubadim. Right? For example, now guys, there's something called a mashkin de surah, where a person lends you money. We're going to see this in Masechta Bava Metzia and Ezer Neshech. A guy lends you money, you use a field for X amount of years. At the end of the time, you ate the payers in the field, you don't have to pay him back. So that's called a mashkin de surah. So this is the case. Ahu Gavra, there was this individual, the Mishkan lay Pardisa L'chavre. He went ahead and he gave a mashkin of a paradis, a keren to his les hashanim. So he had a chayv on him. He gave him the use of 10 years of his property, and it's going to pay off the chayv. V'kosh l'chamesh shanim. At 5 years, the vineyard stopped producing grapes. At 5 years, it stopped producing grapes, and now this person who has the vineyard is the malva is out money. V'asel l'kamayu derabanan. So they came in front of the chachamim. V'kos v'lei tirfa, and they wrote him a tirfa that he could go ahead. He can go ahead and collect from Mishubadim. So over here, this is a case of the Bnei Chayrin drying up. Guys, what happened over here? The vineyard is the Bnei Chayrin. Drying up is equivalent to what? To being flooded. And nonetheless, Bezdin let him go ahead and collect from Mishubadim. So L'chayr, you can be Paishit the Shaila from this case. Hasam Nami Inudu Dafsa Nafshe. There, the fact that you can collect from the people who bought it, they were mafsed on themselves. Even the Havi Yoda, the Pradisa over the Kish, since they know it's not uncommon for what? For a pardis to go ahead and dry up, they shouldn't have bought it. Guys, well, you want to be Paishit the Shaila like this, right? Here's your Shaila. You want to be Paishit a natural event. If a natural event occurs to Bnei Chayrin, can you collect from Mishubadim? So what happened over here? That this person owed him money. He gave him a field. He used the field, this vineyard, for 10 years. And 5 years it dries up. He's owed this money and 5 years worth of money. He now can go, if the leiva of the one who had owned the vineyard, who gave it to him, had other fields, he's able to go and collect from Mishubadim. So l'chayra, when this person was sitting on the field, he was in a Bnei Chayrin. And the person who bought it was free and clear. Yet now, Bezdin's telling him, go collect from the Shubadim. So what do you see? When a natural event occurs, such as a flood or a vineyard that stops producing, you're able to collect from the Shubadim. That's what Rav Yemer wanted to say. That's what Rav Yemer wanted to say to Rav Ashi. Answer Rav Ashi beautifully. That's not true. A field being flooded is a natural event? Not really. I mean, it's natural, but it's not something that's common. But a field, it seems to be that it was normal for a vineyard at X amount of time to stop producing. Those people who bought the fields from the owner of the vineyard, it should have entered their minds that this possibility exists. So you still can't be Paisha the Shaila. There's a distinction between a flood and a distinction between a vineyard that stops going ahead and producing grapes. Guys, you good? Are we okay? I'm trying to. Okay, one more time. One more time. What's a Shaila? Again, Lamda Shaila. Shaila, you know you can't collect from Shubadim in a place where there's a Bnei Chayrin. Good. What happens if there's Bnei Chayrin but it's not usable? Can you collect? We try to be pushing from the Brisa. There we weren't successful. Says the Gemara of Yemet Rav Ashi. Maisa b'chol yom. In other words, I want to bring you from a Maisa, an actual event, not a hypothetical, an actual event. The guy had in his possession to pay off a loan. He had a vineyard. He had a vineyard in his possession to pay off a loan. The vineyard, and halfway through the repayment of the loan, stopped producing. The halacha is that now the person who's owed the money, the malva, can go ahead to the loivas, the people who bought other properties aside from the vineyard, and take it away. Now, when you bought these properties, they were bnei chayrin, right? They weren't. There was no lien. There was no lien whatsoever. There's nothing. He just had the vineyard. This vineyard was taking care of everything. When these other leichim bought it, they were free and clear. There was no mishubadim there. And yet, what do you see? Once the vineyard stops, you're able to go from the bnei chayrin and collect from mishubadim. And for the Gemara, it should have entered your mind. They were mapsing on themselves. They should have entered their mind that this vineyard could stop, and they realized when they bought it in the first place that the possibility exists. Next case. Amar Abaya, says Abaya. The hilchas of halacha is ishtatif b'nei chayrin tov from b'shabdei. We conclude the Gemara says if in fact if the field stops producing, you can go ahead and be mitar from mishubadim. If the field stops producing, in fact, not what I just say, and right. If the field gets flooded, you can go to mishubadim. So Kenny can collect from in our case, Kenny can collect from Heshi. Amar Abaya, nichsei lich. I'm giving you a matana. Matana is to you. And afterwards, it should go to so and so. After you die, it should go to so and so. So I'll give a pecking order. It's you, and after you're out, it should go to so and so. V'amda v'nisas, she stands up and she gets married. She gets married. Baal leikeach have. The baal is leikeach. The ein la'achrayach b'makam bal klum. The achrecha, the one that takes place. In other words, if the woman would die, it would stay by the baal. Even though when he gave it to her, he said, listen, after you, it goes to this one. It doesn't make the baal considered like he sold it, and that's it. In other words, it's considered the Rashbam. I have written over here the Rashbam in Baba Basra, that Kuf Tazayin. He says the first one has the first one that has the kinyan, what? We'll see in a second what it is. Okay, anyway. The Tanya. The second one can do it because the Rishon only has the kinyan Paris and the Sheni has the kinyan Aguf. So therefore, the kinyan, if you own it, you have the kinyan Aguf. Direi Rabbi. These are words of Rabbi. Reb Shimon Loimer, English Sheni Elamash Shaya Rishon. Right? Reb Shimon says that what? The Sheni only, according to Rabbi, the person, if you gave it to one person, and afterwards so and so, and the person sold it, the sheni, meaning the achrecha, can come and take it away. The one can come and take it away. The person, this is the way the Rashbam explains it. The field is yours, and afterwards the so and so, you have rights to the peiros. So and so owns the guf. Since in the end of the day, whoever the second person is, they own the actual karka. So if you sell it, then that person who owns the kinyan aguf can come get it. Now that's what Rabbi says. It's not true. It says the first one has both kinyanim, kinyan peiros and kinyan aguf, and the second one only has what's left over as a result. Only has left over what's as a result. Now Baya, she's going to hold like Rav Shimon. Abaye is going to hold like Rav Shimon, as we're going to see. Umiyam Abaye, Hachita Abaye holds like Rav Shimon. Vamra Abaye, Eza Rasha Aram. Who's a Rasha Aram? Zeh HaMesi Itza Limcha Ben Chasim, Rav Shimon Gamliel. In other words, a Rasha Aram is that this person was supposed to get it, right? And now you're selling it, you're not going to get it. If you kept it, if you didn't sell it, it would go automatically to the second person. Now that you sell it, the second person is not getting it, like Rav Shimon Gamliel. So Abaye is saying a halacha that if you go ahead and get married and you're losing, the second person is losing the right because you got married, isn't like a rishus arum? It says Amika Amar Tinase, does it say lechatchili you should get married? Nisas Kamar, it says if you do get married. In other words, not telling you what to do. If you get married, what's the halacha? The second one gets nothing. Why? Because your husband is like keach and he gets everything. So Abaye holds like Shimon Gamliel, that the first person has both. Guys, here's the lumdus. Like Rebbe, the first person has the kinyan peiros and the second person has the kinyan aguf. Therefore, the second person will always get it. Like Rebbe Shimon Gamliel, as long as the first person has it, they have both. And whatever's left over, they give to the second person. But whatever, they have both. Memela, when they get married and they have both, and the husband's buying it, so he gets both. So there's nothing left for the second one. That's the svara of Shimon Gamliel. The second one has nothing. Why? Because everything, just like you would sell it, you have nothing. Because you have, if someone has both the kinyan peiros and kinyan aguf, you sell it, there's nothing left. Who I did by marriage. If a person goes ahead and gets married, and that baal who gets married is considered like he buys it, you have both. For Amar Abaye, another case, nichse lich v'achrecha leplaini, nechasim to you, and afterwards to so and so, umachra, and she sells it, umesa, and she dies. So now you have the same scenario. A matana was given to you, and after your death to somebody else, she sold it and she dies. Habal moitzi miyad lekuchis. The Baal takes it from the lekuchis. The Baal can take it from the lekuchis. After all, he inherits his wife. V'achrecha miyad Baal. And the achrecha, the one who's supposed to get it, can take it from the hands of the Baal. And then v'leikeach miyad achrecha. And afterwards, leikeach can take it out from the hands of the achrecha. That cycle that we began. Umakminu kule biyad leikeach. And we'll keep it by the leikeach. Ma'ishna meha. Why is it different than Mishnah? Did nan v'chayzeres chalila at shiyasu pshara b'neihem. Why are we there with the keep by the leikeach? And why in our Mishnah do we go ahead and come up with b'shara? And for the Gemara Hassam over there, islay b'sid l'kula. In our Mishnah, the two women who stand to lose their kesuba and the leikeach who spent money in the karka. Therefore, we have to come with b'shara. The two women in our Mishnah, they're going to lose the kesuba. The one who bought it can lose his money. You come with the b'shara. Over here, it was a present. The only one who would take a loss is by leikeach, so we leave it in the hands of the leikeach. Also, Raf from Amlish Shmaitza Kamei Ravashi. Mi Yomer Rabaya Hachi Yomer Rabaya. Nichse Lich VeRechel Ploini Amdav Nisus Bal Leikeach Ave Vein Lachrecha Bal B'Makam Bal Klum. Why over here you're telling me that the achrecha could take it away? Didn't Abaye say before the achrecha that it stays in the hands of the Baal? In this case, you're telling me that the achrecha could take it away. What's the difference between Abaye? Abaye is being says himself. Abaye initially said that the Baal is Lekeach and the Achrecha gets nothing. Over here saying the Baal is Lekeach, yet what? Lekeach can take it away from the Baal. Why is that? It says the Gemara Hasan the Amalah Kashi Penuya. Over there, when did the Rabbi say you can't take it? She was a Penuya. Here he's saying where she's Nesua. Pirish. When he gave it to her, she was a single woman. He gave it as a single woman and said, after this stage, whatever you're in as a single woman, meaning after you leave this world, let it go to so-and-so. Once she gets married, he never meant that the husband shouldn't get it. His whole assumption was, since right now you're in this mitzias, that you're in now as a single woman, then another person should get it. Once that mitzias changes, she's a married woman, then the Baal gets first dibs. Consequently, if he gave it to her when she was already married, so the mitzias, she's a married woman, then the Baal would lose. Then we don't say that the Baal is lekeach since she's married. That's the difference in case number one and case number two. Okay, the last two cases are my kamarle, achrecha likni, baloi likni. And if she's in a sewer, what was he saying to her? Achrecha likni, the one who's giving afterwards is a makne too, and baloi likni, the Baal's not. The last part of the Mishnah, v'chein Baal chayv, right? We said about chayv also the cycle. Okay, what's the cycle? V'chein tana, v'chein Baal chayv, v'shnei lukuches, v'chein isha balas chayv, v'shnei lukuches. Rashi brings the case. Let's go through it quickly. V'chein Baal chayv, v'shnei lukuches. Ruvain noise b'Shimon mana. Ruvain lends money to Shimon. Shimon owes Ruvain 100 sus. Shimon owes Ruvain 100 sus. V'loishtei sadais, and he's got two fields. Umachru l'shnayim. He sells the two fields to people. Zubachamishim, zubachamishim. So the two fields are enough to pay off the loan. Neither one independently. However, because of Balchayv l'lakeach, Ruvain writes l'lakeach sheni. Dinu dvarim mainly imach. I have nothing to do with you. So you can't collect from l'lakeach sheni. Balchayv noitel miyad arishain. So therefore, what? Ruvain can come and collect the 50 from the first one. The kanin loyme nachnu chanakam shetig v'imenu shari chayva connected shteyem. L'lakeach rishon now might miyad sheni. Right? Because why? Because he bought the field from Shimon. So number one can now take it away from number two. Ubalchayv now chayso might see absolute min arishon. Now the Balchayv can take it away from number one. L'lakeach sheni balchayv l'lakeach sheni balchayv, and you begin the whole cycle over again. And the same thing, v'chein leisha balasayv, the same thing would be by an isha that's a balasayv. Hajjalech misha yinasu, hajjalech misha nasu, hajjalech misha nasu. Okay, Bez Hashem share will be tomorrow morning, probably earlier, probably 9:15.